Hi, and welcome to the Ada K Show. I am Ada K. Brown, and am currently a criminal justice major. And I'm a deaf courtroom commentator. Grab a cup of Java, and let's dive in. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back. I think we're good so far. Don't see any problems yet. We'll see what's going on. I do know the other day when you guys were talking to me about my sound being kind of weird, at that same exact spot, another content creator also had the same problem. So it wasn't just me. Thank God it wasn't me. Okay, we've got a little time to kill. I wanted to make sure that this was up and running, and it is. So I'm going to share screen, and we're going to read 2 documents. We're going to be reading some documents. So let's get on and get that going. These are Karen Reed documents. Tomorrow, I thought about doing, since I don't have anything I normally do, and if I'm not committed somewhere tomorrow, I am going to do a Saturday live, nothing but Karen Reed, and we're going to go through all of the affidavits and everything in order. But right now, we're going to go over this because it's in front of me. Let me see if I can squeeze this over. Commute myself a little smaller. I'll have to go back up for court. Save layout. Okay. So if y'all are ready, thank you so much for hopping back on. It does grieve me to have to leave a live because it really hurts. It really, really hurts when I have to leave a live. So with that, okay, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Superior Court Department Docket 2282 CR 0117, Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. The Commonwealth's opposition to the defendant's motion to amend this court scheduling order date, February 10th of 2025. That's weird. Now comes the Commonwealth respectfully requests the Honorable Judge to delay the defendant's request to continue a non-evidentiary motion hearing on the defendant's motion to dismiss for extraordinary governmental misconduct. In accordance with the schedule order, the Commonwealth filed this opposition on February 27, 25. The Commonwealth objects to any continuance and will be prepared to address this motion on Tuesday, March 4th. Ooh, snippy much, are we? OMG, y'all. They're like, honey boo boo, we are not waiting for any kind of continuance. I was like, dang. Okay. Affidavit of counsel in support of motion to amend this court scheduling order date on February 10th. So on February 10th, they came to agreement. Now they want to change it. I, David R. Yannetti, do by hereby depose the state of the following is true to the best of my knowledge and belief. I am an attorney licensed to practice in Massachusetts since December 1989. Oh my gosh, I graduated in 89. My office address is blah, 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 blah. I was retained to represent Karen Reed on January 29th of 2022. The defendant time regarding the above captioned matter. Yesterday, February 26th of 2025, Special Agent Assistant District Attorney Hank Brennan called my cell phone at 4. We'll do it. No, I got to do it the old-fashioned way. Called my cell phone at 4:21 p.m. I could not answer the call at that time, so I texted him with a promise to return phone call. At 5:47 p.m., I called him back. He informed the Commonwealth would be producing a chain of custody report. Y'all want to see what that chain of custody report looks like? Y'all want to see? I got a screenshot of it. Let me go back and find it. Let me share this with you. Here is a copy of that said report. You ready? There it is. Oh, I couldn't help but do it. I couldn't help but do it. Sorry. Love y'all. Oh my gosh, that was so funny. Keith, that was priceless. Thank you, whoever sent that to me. I think that was Angela. Angela, thank you so much. So at 5:47 p.m., I called him back. He informed the Commonwealth would be producing that chain of custody report. He said that we would want it for our motion to dismiss, so he wants to get it to us forthwith. You're being so kind. Use kind, use smart, use important. Quoted from the movie The Help. I asked if he could give me a better idea of the time frame which we would receive it. He said he would like to have it by tomorrow, i.e. today was February 27th. So tomorrow would be today. But that the sergeant responsible for drafting it is retired and unclear how long it would take for him to finish the report. Boo, we got a problem with that. I followed up with a phone call to Mr. Brennan today. He informed me that there would actually be 2 chain of custody reports, both of which he expects to be produced for the defense by tomorrow morning. He further informed me that he would be producing on Monday morning the Sally Point videos. Let's see if that actually happens. When I asked whether there would be new videos beyond what we already have, he replied he did not know. Monday morning, March 3rd, 2025. Oral argument on motions to dismiss is currently scheduled for March 4th or 5th. Until we receive both chains of custody reports and the Sally. So there's 3 things they need to have. Both of the chain of custody and the Sally reports and the Sally report videos. Our motion to dismiss is incomplete, and that is huge. After receiving outstanding discovery, we will need to analyze it, confer with our experts, and modify our motion to dismiss, filing addendum. In light of the other deadlines we are working with to meet this case, including a reciprocal discovery obligation, the defense requires more time than 1 or 2 days to modify its motion to dismiss and alter its prepared oral argument. Didn't even capitalize it. Believe it is in the interests of justice of the court to modify the court schedule, ordering to allow defense to orally argue motion dismiss on the day of March 17th. So that is what they're trying to do there. And then the Commonwealth comes in and says they don't want that. It's not fair. They want to see this on the 4th. So now we are arguing over that. This ought to be fun. If you are live, please make sure and let me know. Hey, have y'all seen Bakers yelling at Jamie? Oh my gosh, they're having fun over there. I want to thank everybody today for the raid. It was awesome. Y'all are you're so awesome. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so let me go back to my live communication and scroll back because I have other documents. We have gone through some of it. Let me see what this is. This is what I want to go over a little bit. Now, I know everybody's been watching other people, and that's fine. But I haven't gone through this. So I want to start going through this. But tomorrow I'm thinking about doing a full in order reading of all the documents, every word, except for exhibits. I may not do all the exhibits because that would be absolutely freaking insane. Because this document is 147. There's one document that's 699 pages. So yeah, we gotta err on the side of caution on some of those. But let's get going. Defendant Karen Reed. The government's motion to dismiss for extraordinary governmental misconduct. Interesting. Interesting. Let's see what they have to say. Of course, now here comes the defendant Karen Reed. Miss Reed respectfully moves the Honorable Judge Court pursuant of Article 12 of the Massachusetts Declaration of Rights and the 5th and 6th and 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution and Mass R. Crime P 14 parentheses C to dismiss all charges with prejudice on the basis of extraordinary governmental misconduct. See U.S. Constitution Amendment v. U.S. Constitution 5, U.S. Constitution Amendment 6, U.S. Constitution Amendment 14, Article 12 of the Declaration of Rights of Massachusetts, R. Crime P 14. We got to look all that up for me to understand all that. The prosecutor may strike hard blows, but he is not at liberty to strike foul ones. Oh, they're coming out. It is as much his duty to refrain from improper methods calculated to produce a wrong conviction as it is used every legitimate means to bring about just one. Throughout the course of these proceedings, Miss Reed has been severely prejudiced by the Commonwealth's pervasive misconduct. Gosh, they're not holding back, are they? They're coming out with guns a-blazing. The Commonwealth has suppressed several, excuse me. I got a new mention. Hold on. Thank you, Haley Mouse. Throughout this proceedings, Commonwealth has suppressed discoverable exculpatory videos, surveillance footage from Canton PD or CPD. It has provided a piecemeal disclosure of some footage, which most of which was disclosed after the trial started. Yeah, that's a problem. And after the Commonwealth represented that all video footage had been provided to the defense for the reason that remained unexplained. Oh, that's okay. Thank you, Haley Mouse. Much of the video that has been disclosed is missing critical time frame and evidence central to Miss Reed's defense. Some of the video clearly appears altered or manipulated, and evidence by the people appearing and disappearing out of nowhere. And that is true. We saw some of that in court where you're watching a video and then boink, someone pops in, or boink, someone is gone. That means it's been edited. It is not in raw form. At the first trial in this matter, Assistant District Attorney Adam Lowley, ADA Lowley, brazenly introduced an inverted video. It elicited plainly false testimony from MSP Sergeant Yearly Butnick, and that the video was unfair and accurate depiction. Excuse me, that the video was a fair and accurate depiction of the critical events. An attempt to falsely insinuate to the jury that no member of law ever approached or touched or otherwise disturbed the right rear tail light of Miss Reed's SUV. There can be no doubt that this video false testimony was offered to mislead the court, the jury, and the defense by making it appear that MSP Trooper Michael Proctor, was standing next to the left rear tail light of the Commonwealth knew the exact opposite was true. Trooper Proctor was in fact standing directly next to the right tail light. Other Sallyport videos which unquestionability favored to the defense because it would severely discredit key witnesses Brian Higgins and redacted. Now, one of the comments that was made by another commentator was what was strange was, and I talked about this, number one, the video itself had been inverted. Let me show you. Settings. This is my left hand. Now it looks like it's my right hand. All of this is just by switching the video, mirroring the video. But if I have something with writing on it, and we go in and mirror, the writing is now backwards. So what happens is now the writing is correct. That's not what happened in the Sallyport video. What happened in that Sallyport video is the timestamp and everything was correct and readable, but the image was reversed. Do you know what that means, y'all? By the way, I'm a Photoshop editor. What that means is that the video itself was reverted and then the timestamp was added later. It's two parts being laid down flat as one. That's why they don't want the metadata. That's why they're fighting against the metadata on these videos. It's ... It redacted. It explicitly was not disclosed to the defense until months after the first trial. To this day, I'm going to highlight that. To this day, the Commonwealth's failure to explain the disturbing circumstances surrounding their disclosure of the exculpatory Sallyport video and why some videos was suppressed from the defense at the first trial has made a mockery of Miss Reed's right to due process. Y'all. And I don't dispute their arguing at all. I don't, because to me, I need to get a different document. Go to my downloads. It's yesterday, that's what I need. This is the defendant Karen Reeves for exculpatory. I got all these. I gotta try to get what's yesterday, 27th? Let's see if that's opening up. Because this program's hard for me to do what I want it to do. So we're gonna try and open it up in another program. And then it's not wanting to open up, so we'll do it this way. So they're fighting this big time, and I think they should. This evidence is not it just doesn't fit. Oh, this was one of those I couldn't read that way. Okay, I'll stick it like this. We'll keep it like this. Okay, so we'll go down here. The Commonwealth exploited the court's order introducing the defense to disclose its impeachment material in advance of the witness testifying. ADA Lally and MSP Lieutenant Brian Tully huddled with key witness Jennifer McCabe mid-trial, prepped her on how to explain why she never disclosed when she went to Sergeant Lake's home one day after John O'Keefe's death, and then suppressed the exculpatory statement by McCabe during the session until nearly a month after the testimony, which at that point McCabe preventing Winter's safe. At which point McCabe and other relevant witnesses were safely off the witness stand. The Commonwealth had complied with the other obligations to provide statements of witnesses before they testified. The defense would have been positioned to expose Ms. Cabe's material inconsistent statement about her meeting Sergeant Lang. As a result, this extraordinary governmental misconduct, Ms. Reed has been permanently and irrevocably denied her constitutional right to blank what a fair trial. No remedy other than dismissal can adequately address the significant harm to Ms. Reed and the injustice of proceeding without the loss of exculpatory evidence that was in the Commonwealth's possession. Redacted, according to the case, Ms. Reed must dismiss with prejudice. Now, here's the thing. I don't understand these redactions because the redactions were only supposed to be done that dealt with the federal investigation. Unless that's federal information there, they're redacting it. All right, statement number 1 of facts. Statement of facts. Miss Reed is accused of the following crime arising out of the death of John O'Keefe, murder in the second degree, manslaughter under the influence of alcohol in violation of code, and leaving the scene of a personal injury and death in violation of code. A month-long jury trial was held. We know about this. The Commonwealth altered the course of the first trial in this case by destroying exculpatory evidence. Okay, here's the list. Destroying exculpatory. Oh, I can't do it like that. Dagnabbit. And it won't let me. I'm trying to just grab the text and it won't let me. So, 1, by destroying of exculpatory evidence. 2, we'll just do it this way. 1, 2, withholding exculpatory evidence. And 3, interfering with the jury in the case in which the jury either voted to acquit or was deadlocked on the lesser of one charge. There is no cure short of a dismissal with prejudice that can remedy the serious constitutional and statutory violations that have occurred in this case. The facts related to the representative misconduct discover violations are set forth. Okay, let's read here. In the days and the weeks following the trial, 5 okay, this is talking about the 5 coming up. Part of the problem is that the Supreme Justice Courts, um, of Mi Massachusetts are saying because the defense did not submit an objection even after the jury was told to go back to their room over the fact that this was done, the judge had dismissed, and called a mistrial, is why Karen Reed is gonna be charged on all 3 charges again. Facts relating to the destruction and withholding of the exculpatory CPD video surveillance footage. The court is aware of the critical importance of the video surveillance footage from the CPD in January 29 to 22. Commonwealth has produced dribs and drabs. I love this. Dribs and drabs of various clips of video surveillance obtained on January 29, 2022, without any accompanying reports, evidence, logs, and other documents regarding the recovery of the chain of custody of evidence on at least 4 separate occasions. Okay, remember we talked about there's been since this a motion to delay a motion hearing until the defense receives the evidence logs and the reports from a retired officer and the chain of evidence. Well, they don't have it, so that's why they're doing this. And the prosecution is now saying that they can't require the retired police officer or detective to move any faster, and as soon as they get the reports, they'll give it to them. They're basically putting it off on the retired personnel. He shouldn't even be involved in this. Those reports should have been made. They shouldn't have to be made today. You shouldn't have to sit here today and write up a report concerning chain of evidence and everything 3 years, 4 years later. Yes, my love. I will have to run a quick errand at 4. Hopefully, the court will be up by then. Okay, February 2nd of 2022, the relevant discovery order. The defense filed the defendant's emergency motion for preservation of evidence. February 2nd of 22, okay, 3 years ago, including the preservation of all physical evidence such as video surveillance footage with the Salton District Court. Order on motion to preserve evidence as at February 2nd, 22 hearing. ADA Lally stated in open court that he had reviewed the proposed order and had no objections to it. That same day, the court issued a preservation order for all physical evidence, including surveillance footage. In other days, 3 days after the death of John O'Keefe, the Commonwealth had and were aware of the affirmative obligation to preserve any and all video surveillance footage in its possession, custody, or control, which included the CPD, Massachusetts State Police, and ADA Lally was required to notify the law enforcement of this order. He just threw Lally under the bus. Yep. On September 16th of 2022, Miss Reed's case was transferred to the Norfolk Superior Court following her June 9th, 22nd indictment. The defense filed a separate motion to compel the prosecution of certain outstanding discovery, including all crime scene photos, videos taken in the Commonwealth with this case, Exhibit B. October 5th, order on the defendant's motion to compel. October 5th of 22, this court granted that motion to compel in part and ordered the Commonwealth to produce all video and evidence and metadata associated with the videos on that date. Here's the problem. On all of that, so this happened in January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October. 8 months. They have known that they are going to have to turn this over, and they had not. And so, hello. Date of production and facts relating to the discovery of the constitutional violation. Of course, we're going to get into a lot of redactions. The CPD's video surveillance footage had been in the Commonwealth's possession and custody and control since January 29 of 22. And notwithstanding the court order on 5/22 discovery to compel the production of all video evidence and accompanying metadata in the Commonwealth's possession, the Commonwealth and its agent withheld this exculpatory evidence from the defense for more than 2 years, failing to disclose even the first incomplete batch of footage until the eve of the first trial. Now, guys, I love you. My pupper is holding her legs. I'll be right back. And thank you very much. Gotta go, Papa, gotta go. And so, okay. Much for your understanding. All righty then. Is everybody having a good day? I hope you are. I hope you is. It has been a crazy morning. It really has been a real interesting and crazy day. Okay. Now I got my batteries. I was all good. Let me shrink that down. I had to resize it. Sorry, guys. Okay. Okay. So, failing to disclose even the first incomplete batch of the footage until the eve of the first trial in 2024, April 4th of 2024, did not give them any of the videos until the eve of trial. And to me, that is absolutely freaking crazy and insane. I don't understand why they think that they can get away with it. I got a piece of fuzz on my mouth, but they did. The Commonwealth has now produced 4 incomplete batches of videos surveillance footage recordings at the CPD on January 29 of 22. What was produced in April 4th of 24? Let's see what they gave up. You wanna know what they gave up? Yeah, I wanna know what they gave up. April 24, 4 of 24, the eve of the first trial in this matter, first time disclosed woefully incomplete CPD video footage which consisted of the main driveway and the Sallyport front wall. Cameras from January 29th, see nod 35. Curiously, the Sallyport front wall footage omitted 42 minutes at the precise time the SUV arrived in the Sallyport garage, Exhibit D and Exhibit E. They have the footage in here for them to review. The missing footage from the Sallyport front wall camera would have captured a close-up of the condition of the SUV once it arrived into the Sallyport. Why do it shows I have why? I got something that's not showing up that should be showing up. I'm trying to pull something for y'all. Let me go over here. Okay. So now they have this footage that's missing the exact time that the vehicle pulls into the Sallyport that shows the condition of that rear taillight. Close up condition of the SUV right rear taillight upon the arrival of the Sallyport garage. The individuals who had access to the right rear taillight and whether anyone removed the taillight material from the SUV before the first piece of taillight evidence was recovered at 34 Fairview Road at 32 and 32 or that's an ID number. Okay. Hold on. So then the condition of the right rear tail light of the Lexus SUV at the time it entered into law enforcement custody is perhaps, I would say it is the most critical and highly contested issue in this case. Well, what I want to know is when the tow truck driver, hello, it's Brit. Thanks for liking. When the tow truck driver, okay, pulls up to tow the vehicle, where are those particular, where are those photos? Because it's strange to me, very strange to me, that you have a, I'm going to delete that, that you have no photos and they're required to photograph. It's 46 after. Yeah, he gets off at. Okay, guys, I have to take care of something. I'm going to leave this up with music. I apologize. This day is one of those days, guys. We will pick up where we're leaving off on this. I'm going to share this screen. We're going to put on some low music, and then I'll also be monitoring from in the car. It has to do with this morning. Sorry about it. lessons of food safety. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining and waiting. We are waiting for Port's return. I have to do an unexpected errand, but note that we are all good and we appreciate you and thank you so much for being here. I will be right back. Now you'll see me, but you won't be able to hear me. Okay, I don't know what that noise was, y'all. Let me go in and see what I can figure out. That was totally crazy weird. Okay, I'm going to take that off and just talk to y'all. So far in this letter with the Karen Read, the motion for the Karen Read, the government has not followed court orders, and this piecemeal of documents that they have been dribbling into the defendant's lap, to me, is a huge red flag. But in all honesty, I don't care how good of a case they have for this case to be dropped on governmental misconduct. They could have the sun, the gold in the world, and what's going to happen? Judge Canoni is going to deny it 100%, because then she has some, I believe, may have some responsibilities for that. The music makes me think of a 70s crime show. That is true. That is true. Hello, Jesse. Thank you for liking. Hello, it's Brit and Haley Mouse. Thanks for joining. But the thing that bothers me with the video is that they were saying that when the defense had their expert witness this past year go out to the Canton PD and look at the device in which the video was recorded on, tried to get all the information, and it wasn't there. And they said, oh, well, it rewrites over after 30 days, so we don't have it. Sorry, there's nothing to be had. Well, there was an order put in that they were to preserve all evidence only 3 days after the unaliving. So they should have already had a raw data dump of that information, including the metadata, and they should have been able to turn all that over to the defense. Problem, if you altered it, if you messed with it, if you did anything to that video, the metadata is going to show it. So now they did not turn any video evidence over until the eve of trial of 2024. So that is a huge problem. And then it was piecemealed, no metadata, and it wasn't until the middle of trial that they even defense realized that the video in the Sally Port was reversed. But the question begs to differ. Someone said, well, couldn't they have accidentally reverted the video? No, number one. And if it was accidentally flipped, say you're putting it up in a PowerPoint and you accidentally flip it. I've done that before. What was so significant about that is if you have the timestamp and the date and everything running like a ticker on the bottom, and you invert that accidentally, all of it will be inverted, including the letters and the numbers. But with this particular piece of evidence, the timestamp was not inverted. It was in correct viewing order. Only the image was inverted. That's huge, y'all. Huge. And that to me is very crazy. And I don't understand how can someone sit there and even argue that. That was an altered video. Now, they're now saying that they have a retired detective who, surprise, has a copy of the videos on his hard drive. His, not the department's, his hard drive from when he downloaded the evidence. But there's no metadata attached. And they want him to write up a report, well, 2 reports, and they want him to do an affidavit to the chain of command of this evidence. That's crazy, y'all. It has been 3 years later. This man's retired. and the video evidence that is on his hard drive is not remained in the custody of Canton PD. In fact, it's remained in his custody, and guess what? He can do whatever he wants to that. He can change, he can manipulate, he can cut, he can edit. It is not a direct chain of evidence that has been secured and safely stored in a way with the metadata that the defense can use. How in the hell is this trial even being permitted? Whether you believe she's innocent or guilty, whether it's a technicality or not, it's her constitutional rights. Same as if it was you or I. We have constitutional rights. And by taking this information off of a retired police officer's hard drive and relying on his testimony of the chain of command when he has been retired over a year, I don't understand that. And I do not understand, here's the other point, how do they have any of this evidence trickling in on videos when they said all of the video evidence was rewritten over 30 days after the incident happened? Well, that's what we're getting to. I'm not there yet. So now they're also stating that it is on a police system. The inconsistencies and the bouncing back and forth of where these videos came from has no evidentiary chain of command, has no clarity. Where is it coming from? When the defense sent their expert in to get a copy of all of the videos off of that main hard drive and the metadata, get a clean and clear copy, look at everything, get the logs, and they said there was nothing to be had on the police system. So Haley Mouse, how could it be on the police system when they sat there and told the defense, bring your expert, you can come get it, sure. You can video us getting it, you can document whatever. And then the guy goes back empty-handed, and we're in court with Karen Reed putting a motion for the Commonwealth to reimburse her $24,000 for the cost of the fees and everything to have this guy do it, only to turn around. Can you park near his car? Only to turn around and have it now on the police system? I don't understand that. Is it or is it not? Was it or was it not? This has to be one of the most frustrating bone of contention with the prosecution and the defense. If I was a defendant, I would be upset to the hilt because this rigmarole, there's no clear path of where this evidence was and where is it coming in my humble opinion. I don't understand. It is so convoluted. Haley Mouse, do we have a clear direction? Is there a clear direction on where this evidence is coming from? Because right now, oh, my glasses are crappy dirty. Right now, we don't have, nobody has a clean, raw data from these videos. Everything is pieced together. So then let's take that out of the picture, and the tail light in and of itself, if I understand right, and I haven't gone back and really looked, and I need to, was it not reported, correct me Haley Mouse if I'm wrong, was it, or anybody, was it not reported that the in the taillight situations that they found some of the taillight that night, but then didn't they find a bunch more pieces of that taillight? Much more pieces of that taillight weeks later. Weeks later. So, good news is we may get some more video evidence that will bring more clarity. I had someone jumping on me because I did an interview and I was going to download it. I'm going to do it this weekend for y'all to watch on Tanika's, where I gave a kind of a bullet point of some questions that she asked me of the Karen Reed trial. And some of the things that I said people brought some question to. And here's the thing. Let me give you my history on this trial. When I first came on to the history of doing, well, not the history, of doing this, I did not look at trials based off of the information within. I was approaching it from the point of an alternate juror. And I did not look into any facts of the case. I just knew that this was what everybody wanted to watch. So I said, okay, let's do it. I did not know anything about this other than the fact that Karen Reed was being charged with hitting her boyfriend cop with a vehicle after a night of drinking and arguing and leaving him to die in the snow. That's all I knew. Welcome, oh sunny day. Oh, One Sunny Day is her name, but I call her Oh Sunny Day for the song. So I came into this case really thinking that she very much potentially could be guilty of this. I was really, really on the side of the prosecution for a short while. However, the more I watched this case and I looked at the inconsistencies and I looked at the evidence, once again, as an alternate juror would, with no previous knowledge or conception of what was going on. Everything
First
I
of all,
heard
counsel
live.
present, jury, and alternates are present. Good afternoon.
Good
We are going to
afternoon.
interrupt the testimony of our last witness, Ms. Sementilli, so that people can call another witness out of order. Please call your next witness.
Another out of order witness.
Dr. Odi Ukbo.
Haley Mouse, if you want to hop in the background and remove things, it'll be about 8 minutes before I'm back to the studio. I'm sorry, guys, but my daughter came in from college. She's got something going on with her vehicle, and I had to get her to where her vehicle was so they could get it fixed. Thank y'all for putting up with my shenanigan. At least I'm getting some vitamin D.
Ode Ukpo, first name Odey, last name Ukpo.
Proceed, please.
Doctor, can you please tell us how it is that you're employed?
I am the chief medical examiner of the County of Los Angeles.
What is a medical examiner, please?
A medical examiner is a physician who his expertise is in determining the cause and manner of death, especially in cases of suspicious
You can remove the Ada will return
How
shortly.
many years have you been at the LA County Medical Examiner's Office, which was previously titled the LA County Coroner's Department?
I've been employed by the medical examiner's office for approaching 11 years, so 10 and a half years.
Oh, this is going to be good. It's the ME.
Tell us, if you would, please, about your training and education that qualifies you for your position today.
I received my medical degree from Loyola Chicago. I then went on to do a residency in pathology at the Barnes Jewish Hospital in St. Louis. I then went on to do a fellowship in forensic pathology at the Office of the Medical Investigator in Albuquerque. I am board certified in anatomical, clinical, and forensic pathology. I'm also licensed to practice medicine in California.
Can you define for us, explain to us what forensic pathology is?
Forensic pathology is a specialty in medicine where physicians determine both the cause and the manner of death. The cause of death is the event that caused everything to happen subsequently, leading to their death. And then also in a medical examiner's office, the physician is tasked with determining the manner of death. And the manner of death is the circumstances where how the death happened. There are 5 different manners of death.
Approximately how many autopsies have you conducted?
Somewhere over 1,000.
And have you also testified many, many times regarding cause and manner of death
Yes,
as an expert?
yes,
I want to direct your attention back to January 26th of 2017. On that date, did you conduct an autopsy on a decedent by the name of Fabio Sementilli under what was coroner's case 2017-688 that is now a medical examiner case number?
that's correct.
And the age of the decedent, were you able to determine that?
The age of the decedent was part of the investigation that was provided to us. Yes,
And was he 49 years old?
yes.
And what about height and weight?
Height and weight was also taken as his body came to our office.
And what were those measurements?
I need to refer to my report to refresh my recollection on that.
Your Honor?
I'm there and ready to answer.
Yes.
His height was 70 inches and he weighed 300 pounds.
70 inches would translate into what height?
So that is 5'10".
Did you prepare an autopsy report with respect to your examination, observations, as well as diagrams and notations?
Yes,
And when an autopsy is conducted, such as in this case, were photographs taken at the time?
yes,
And have you reviewed not only your report, but also the photographs that were taken prior to, during, and after autopsy?
yes,
Okay. And do those photos accurately depict your observations?
yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I have 16 documents, including photographs and diagrams. May they be marked collectively, please, as People's 231.
Yes.
Start by showing the People's 231. There's a 5 in the lower left corner. Do you recognize what you see here?
Yes,
Does that also come up on the projector right there to your left?
the screen before me doesn't have it on.
Oh, I'm sorry. You can just turn it on the top. That would have happened. Apparently someone shut off the.
We'll stay friends.
It's something's floating on the screen, but there's nothing. Oops, no, now you turn it off. See, there's a little. No.
Got to get my ears connected, y'all. Okay, y'all. Got to get my ears connected. We're at a break again. Let me scoot back and see what was going on with that. Why are we at another break?
Did you prepare an autopsy report with respect to your examination, observations, as well as diagrams and notations?
Yes.
And when an autopsy is conducted, such as in this case, were photographs taken at the time?
Yes.
And have you reviewed not only your report,
You were awesome, babe.
but also the photographs that were taken prior to, during, and after autopsy?
Yes.
Okay. And do those photos accurately depict your observations?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I have 16 documents, including photographs and diagrams. May they be marked collectively, please, as People's 231.
Yes.
Start by showing People's 231. There's a 5 in the lower left corner. Do you recognize what you see here?
Oh my God, she's seeing the images.
Yes.
Does that
And
also
they better get
the projector right there to your left?
Okay, she is seeing the images, and if they can't get her under control, she's going to have to leave the courtroom. I kid you not. I am not exaggerating. So we'll see. Maybe that's why we have a break, because those images are being put up for all to see in the jury.
The screen before me doesn't have it on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, there's you can just turn it on the top. I would have had someone shut off the.
Y'all are funny. I know, right?
It's something's floating on the screen, but
It's gorgeous out. It's like almost 80 degrees. Let me see what the temperature is. It's beautiful out, y'all. I got some vitamin D. It's 72. Love y'all. Thank you. Oh, hello, it's Brit. I feel like usually you see the lawyers comforting their clients, but hers was straight up ignoring her. Yeah, I know, right? That was straight up ignoring. I haven't even eaten my burrito.
No.
I don't know why we went to that. Wondering if they're having technical difficulties, and that's why. You guys, I got some sad news. Our shop kitty, our cat that's in the shop, disappeared. We had the door open, bringing some stuff in, and we think she got out. Now, luckily, she was birthed right outside, so hopefully she's around and we'll recover her. She's fixed, shotted, vetted, and everything else, so we don't have to worry about babies. But it's beautiful weather, and I can see why she'd want to go outside, but not like that. So we're all devastated over here. Me too. We love that kitty. Mm. Okay, I'm gonna go back. Okay, she's back. I'm so upset over the kitty.
Can you tell us what you have drawn in on this diagram, consistent with what you observed?
Yes. On this diagram, there's a portion that is the left upper chest, which is near a nipple, near the nipple. And that is where I noted a stab wound of the chest. Also on the left arm, there are superficial sharp force injuries involving the arm, including the bicep.
And I note that pointing to the wound to the chest, the left chest, as you've indicated above, it says SFI. What does SFI stand for?
Stands for sharp force injury.
And as you mentioned, when I was asking you about forensic pathology, you indicated that there are 5 different causes of death. Would sharp force injury be one of those?
I was referring to manner of death for the 5. There are several ways to die for cause of death.
Okay. And below where it says SFI, I see that you have indicated some measurements as well as direction and depth, correct?
Yes.
And we'll come back to that. Showing you 231. There's a 2 in the lower left corner, and let's start. This one has 2 diagrams. Number 21, and the other one 22. Let's start with 21. Do you recognize what you see here?
Yes.
And is this once again a diagram that contains your notation and signature?
Yes.
And I see that you have indicated SFI, and I think in parentheses it says 6. Is that correct?
In the parentheses is the letter G as in George.
Okay. And once again, beneath that, does it contain some information relative to your observations regarding depth, direction, and other information in terms of measurements?
Yes, depth, direction, and also characteristics of the edge of the wounds.
And if we look at this area that I'm pointing to here, where you have drawn a line, is that the area on the interior of the right leg, just above the knee?
Yes.
Looking at the diagram next to it, 22, to the right of 21 and 231, with the 2 in the lower left corner. Again, does this appear to contain your notations as well as your signature with respect to several sharp force injuries?
Yes.
What is a sharp force injury?
Sharp force injury is an injury due to something that is sharp.
Seems fairly self-explanatory. Showing you People's 231, where there's a 6 in the lower left corner. Again, is this the same decedent that we talked about, Mr. Fabio Sementilli?
Yes.
And again, is this a photograph that was taken at the Department of Medical Examiner?
Yes.
And what is it that we see here with respect to the right side of the face, the neck area and jawline?
On the right side of the face and jawline demonstrates the sharp force injuries of the neck and also on one on the face, essentially.
And we see that same set of injuries in People's 231. There's a 7 in the lower left corner.
Yes.
And again, in 231, there is the number 8 in the lower left corner.
Yes.
Looking at People's 231, that has a 9 in the lower left corner, I see that there are placards A, B, and C. Are those indicators that you placed for reference to your description in your autopsy report?
Yes.
Let's start by looking at number A. First of all, how many sharp force injuries in total did you observe?
There were a total of 7 either incised wound or stab wound, and then there were 2 additional superficial wounds on the left arm.
What is the difference between an incised wound and a stab wound?
An incised wound is where the surface of the injury is longer than it is deep. A stab wound is deeper than it is long.
So in looking at what you have delineated as A, can you describe this particular sharp force injury to us?
Yes. This is a stab wound of the face that's near the jawline. And there are 2 areas of the wound that look separate from each other, almost forming like a Y appearance to the wound.
Okay. What was the direction of this particular sharp force injury?
This one was from his back to front. And I need to refer to my report for the additional directions. His right to left and downward.
So in a downward direction.
Correct.
So in this one, you have 2 separate angles, as you mentioned. It's sort of in a Y shape. What does that indicate to you?
This indicates either the person holding the knife was moving as the knife came out in a different direction, so that's why you have two components, or the person being assaulted was moving as the knife was in them and it came out.
Okay. And were there, out of the 7 sharp force injuries that we're going to talk about, were 3 of those injuries consistent with being back to front?
Yes.
All right. And can you tell us what was the track or the wound track in this particular case?
This injury for the one labeled A went through essentially soft tissue, which is like muscle and fat, so no major organs or vessels were identified.
How deep was this particular injury?
I need to refer to my report for that
Sure.
detail. The depth was 2 inches for this one.
And I noticed in your report that you labeled this particular injury as sharp force injury 1. In terms of assigning a number, do those in any way correlate with an assumed order?
No.
So you number them for purposes of reference to your report.
That's correct.
Okay. In terms of each of the seven sharp force injuries, are all of these injuries consistent with a knife or knives that are single edged blades?
Yes.
What does that mean?
A
Yeah,
single-edged
right on back.
blade will have
One sunny day, you're
such
right.
that one part of the stab wound has a sharp end where the knife is sharp, and the opposite end is blunt, which means that that side of the knife was not sharp. And so therefore, it's consistent with a knife that is a single-edged blade.
Were any of the injuries specific to a particular area of the body, such as cartilage or bone, that would potentially preserve a tool mark or pattern?
None of the wounds have features that would suggest a tool mark pattern to be preserved.
Does that mean that if detectives, law enforcement were able to identify a potential weapon and submit it to the Department of Medical Examiner, there wouldn't be any injuries to compare a weapon to?
Correct.
Okay. When we talk about a single-edged blade, showing you what's been previously marked as People's 155, are we talking about any type of knife such as this that is smooth on one end and then sharp on the other?
Yes.
And in terms of this particular item, which has a serrated blade, as we see here, again, were there any tool marks to specific areas of the body, as I mentioned, like cartilage or bone, that would tend to preserve a potential pattern such as serration or a tool mark?
No, there are no features of the wounds where a specific weapon or, tool could be matched to, other than the features of being a blunt and sharp edges is consistent with a single edge blade.
Okay. So that's as much as you could tell with respect to the weapon, correct?
Yes.
Let's look at what you've delineated as B, or sharp force injury 2. Can you tell us about that particular injury?
Yes. This was a sharp force injury of the neck that was longer than it was deep, so it was an incised wound.
Okay. And you told us the difference between an incised wound and a stab wound with respect to this particular injury. Was there, again, both a sharp and a blunt edge?
Yes.
Okay. Again, as you said, consistent with a single-edged knife?
Yes.
Okay. And let's move on to what you've notated as injury C, sharp force injury 3. Could you describe that one for us?
The one labeled C is a sharp force injury of neck that is a stab wound. And this had a significant injury associated with it, which was the jugular vein and carotid artery were severed as a result of this stab wound.
Okay. So in this case, what was the depth of this particular wound?
I need to refer to my report briefly. The depth was 4 inches.
And what was the direction, please?
The direction went from his front to back, right to left, and downward.
If I were to ask you about this injury, is it possible that this injury, given the direction of the injury front to back, right to left, downward, the front to back portion of the injury, is that possibly consistent with being attacked maybe from behind? It's a hypothetical.
So,
It's possible.
And how would an injury such as that potentially occur?
Just to clarify, if it from behind, you mean?
Yeah.
If the person is behind, it could be a strike that's extending out, but then coming back. Even though they're behind the person, it'll be on the relative to their body, because that's what we talk about in our diagrams and injuries. It's relative to the body, not the person. And so in that scenario, someone can be behind, and then the direction of the stab wound is going from their front to back because they're coming from their front to their back.
Could it be potentially consistent with, again, hypothetically, someone reaching around the front of the neck area?
Yes.
You mentioned that this one perforated the jugular vein as well as the right carotid artery. Are those injuries, perforations of the jugular vein and the carotid artery, immediately life-threatening?
Yes.
And did this particular injury cause bleeding into the trachea?
Yes.
So that would mean that, did you actually observe that there was blood being aspirated into the lung?
Yes.
So in that situation, just so that we can understand that in a common sense fashion, that would mean that he would be choking on his own blood.
Essentially, that would be the way that I think most people will understand what's happening when blood is getting into the windpipe.
Okay.
You're aspirating
And
it.
given that you saw aspiration of blood into the lungs, is that an indicator that this particular decedent was likely alive for possibly an interval of several minutes, not seconds?
The fact that there was breathing enough to essentially aspirate the blood indicates that the death didn't happen instantly. There are other components of this that tell me that it is minutes possibly for the length, but not this one.
And what is that, along with this particular factor?
In addition to studying these wounds, also look at the brain. And the brain, when you lose blood, the way it responds is that it starts to swell. And it takes some time for that to happen. That doesn't happen instantly. And so that feature is consistent with a death that happened over a course of minutes because the brain was able to respond for the need of oxygen due to lack of blood.
Okay. Showing you people's 231.
It was not a picnic. he suffered, and that's what upsets me.
in the lower left corner. I see here that you
Anybody see real
have
tears? We have a tear meter.
added a notation that this is wound D, or sharp force injury number 4. Can you describe this particular injury for us?
This is a stab wound of the right side of his neck, essentially behind the ear sort of region of the neck.
Okay. And what was the direction?
And I refer to my report again. This one was from his back to front, left to right, and downward.
And what was the depth of this particular wound?
The depth of this wound was 3 inches.
And that is, this would be described, we're looking now at the 2 photographs on that 231 with the 10 in the lower left corner. This would be, you described in your report as a gaping wound, correct?
Yes.
Showing you 231. There's number 14. The photograph on the right, is that a close-up that you have marked as F that we see in the photograph on the left?
Yes.
Can you describe this wound for us, please?
This is a stab wound of the left chest.
And what's the direction of this particular wound?
This one went from his front to back, left to right, and downward.
And can you tell us what the wound track was in terms of what the injury was internally?
Yes, the severe injury here was a stab wound
Sunny day. Yeah,
through
hold
the
your breath.
heart that went to the depth of the
No,
ventricular
your
septum,
heart
which
stops
is a
beating. The blood doesn't
kind of
go
think of
there.
a major wall
Going.
within the heart.
Looking for blood.
This was associated with
I don't-
bleeding around the heart,
Start swelling.
in addition to a significant amount of bleeding into the left chest.
Okay. And you said this was a depth of how many inches?
This one was a depth of 4 inches.
And given that
That's a
you
pretty
had
stab.
bleeding around the heart cavity, was there also a large amount of blood that you observed during the course of your autopsy that was collecting in the left chest and the heart cavity where the lung sits?
Yes.
As such, would this be one of those injuries that I asked you about that would be immediately life-threatening?
Yes.
And that's because this is an injury to a vital organ or heart?
Yes, the vital organ, both for bleeding, but also the heart doesn't deal well with injury. It disrupts its electrical activity that it needs to pump. So there are 2 ways that this can cause death.
And would this be characterized as an injury where there was massive blood loss?
Yes.
When you said that this injury was 4 inches in depth and pierced the organ, the heart, showing you people's 231, there's a 15 in the lower left corner. Can you tell us what we're looking at here that I'm pointing to?
Yes. This is a photograph of the heart removed from the body, specifically the front part of the heart. In the middle, there's a defect, which is the stab wound through the heart that caused the bleeding.
And
Oh,
the
showed
shape of
it.
this stab wound that we see here, is that the same shape that we see exhibited in people's 231, where there is a 14 in the lower left corner that you marked as F, injury F.
Wow. That was a very
I would agree that the
bad.
shapes are similar.
If we look at people's 231, where there's an 11 in the lower left corner from a different vantage point, is this the same injury that I'm pointing to here?
Yes.
And just below that, what is this injury that we see on the left arm?
That is a superficial wound consistent with a sharp instrument, but it's very superficial, much like a scratch.
And looking at people's 231, where there's 12 in the lower left corner, is that also a close-up of these two injuries?
Yes, this shows the stab wound of the chest and also that superficial injury in the left arm.
Looking at people's 231, there's a 13 in the lower left corner. Looking at this injury here to the left neck, can you describe that injury for us?
Yes, this is a sharp force injury of the neck once again. However, this is on the left side.
Okay. So we have the sharp force injuries both to the right side of the neck, several to the right side, as well as one here to the left side.
That's correct.
And you describe this as a V-shaped stab wound.
That's correct.
How would one sustain an injury such as this, as you described earlier, with there being potential for the knife moving, the assailant moving, or the victim moving?
So when the sharp instrument first gets inserted, if it comes out at a different angle, it can create another separate wound, but they're all part of the same wound. And that's why you can see two different components. Either it's the person wielding the sharp instrument moving, or the person being assaulted is also moving. So it can be either scenario.
Okay. Or both?
Or both, a combination of both, correct.
Okay. What was the depth of this particular injury?
The depth for this injury was 3 inches.
Okay. And what was the direction?
This went from his back to front, left to right, and downward.
Left to right or right to left?
Left to right and downward.
Thank you. Looking at people's 231, there's a 16 in the lower left corner. Photograph on the right, does that appear to be a close-up of what we see on the left?
Yes.
And did you note this as injury G?
Yes.
And can you tell us what we're looking at here?
This is his right thigh, so approximate to the right knee.
And
I don't know if
what
I should be
was
showing
the
these.
direction of this particular injury?
This injury went from his front to back, left to right, and upward.
Okay. So that's a different direction than we've seen before. The other ones we were talking about a downward direction.
That's correct. This is the one that was upward.
Okay. So could this be consistent with an assailant striking up, or the victim being close to or on the ground?
Yes, there are multiple scenarios that can be consistent with this, but essentially the blade is going upward.
Okay. And what was the depth of this injury, please?
For this injury, it was 4.5 inches.
And what was the path of the wound track?
This went from his front to back, his right to left, and upward.
Right to left.
Yes, I
before you said
apologize.
left to right, I just
I
want to make
think
sure.
yeah,
Okay.
thank you. It's right to left.
Okay. And what was injured or perforated in this particular case with respect to this sharp force injury that you itemized as G or 7 to the right thigh?
There was injury to the right femoral artery and vein.
Now, again, given that we're talking about a femoral vein and artery, just like we talked about the wound to the chest cavity, would that also cause a significant loss of blood in a rapid manner here?
Yes.
So again, would this be an injury that would be immediately life-threatening?
Yes.
All right. So in total, we talked about 7, I think, sharp force injuries. I think there's the 2 superficial and then the 5 stab or incised wounds, correct?
Just to clarify, there were 7 that were either stab wounds or incised wounds, and an additional 2 that were superficial wounds, also consistent with sharp force injuries.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Bringing the total to 9.
Going back to the diagram number 22 that we looked at earlier in 231 with the 2 in the lower left corner. Did you make notations on your diagram with respect to 5 of them on this particular diagram?
Yes.
And if we look at diagram 21, this is the one we just talked about, the femoral artery and vein, correct?
Correct.
And if we look at 20-2, as we talked about, this is the one to the chest, and then the 2 superficial wounds that we talked about to the area across from where the armpit is, and then on the left bicep, correct?
Correct.
Did you observe anything on the hands, wrists area, or inner arm area that would be consistent, let's say, with a indication of a defensive wound?
I did not.
Okay. What is a defensive wound?
A defensive wound is a term in forensic pathology where the region of the body that's injured is something that would be expected when someone is trying to defend themselves from a weapon such as a sharp instrument.
So if one were to try to defend oneself or to ward off an attacker, generally the instinct is to put your hands up, correct?
Yes, to reach out the arms essentially to keep the person away, or to try to maybe even grab the implement, or whatever happens in that interaction. There's an injury that happens as a result of that.
Given that you did not see that in this case, that there were no classic signs of defensive wounds to the hands, wrists, or arms, what would that indicate to you?
One scenario that is possible is that the person was not aware, maybe sleeping, maybe just not aware of what's happening, and that's one possible scenario. Because the expectation is to defend yourself and try to ward off somebody. So without that, it raises the possibility of that.
In other words, an individual who was taken by surprise and didn't have the time to register to try and protect themselves.
Correct.
Correct, or they are somehow bound or something like that that's preventing them.
Okay. Is it also consistent perhaps with an individual who's unable to fight back because maybe they're being restrained in some manner, as you mentioned?
Yes.
Or another possibility that the person is overwhelmed by their attackers and therefore is unable to fight back. Would that also be consistent with the lack of a defensive wound or wounds in this case?
In the event that they're overwhelmed, I can still expect to see defensive injuries. However, without that, it just raises the possibility of a surprise.
Cat has been found. Let me see my girl.
You sure you want her?
Yeah, but when you do come, or let me be prepared. Come here, baby. Come here, honey. Come here. We had a scare that you had escaped. What is wrong? Kitty has been found. Aww. No, we're going this way. Oh, you ought to.
We should keep it up like she's not here until Sarah finds out.
Yeah. She was sleeping under my footstool, and I have a blanket that is covering the footstool. Sensei, my dog's eating the cat food. Well, that did all good. Oh, the dust. So the kitty has been found. Oh God, our cat's been missing.
Also consistent perhaps with what we've talked about previously with respect to several of these wounds, that the person may have been initially attacked from behind, or someone with their arm coming around in front of the neck.
It's pretty choice of words on the prosecutor's part, but that does not cover speculation.
Go ahead.
I was worried, y'all.
That's one scenario that's possible.
So what was the cause of death in this case?
Stab wounds.
Multiple stab wounds.
Just stab wounds.
Okay. But we talked about the fact that at least 3 of these injuries were immediately
You
life-threatening.
were worried.
Correct.
All right. And what was the manner of death?
Homicide.
And what does that mean in terms of a medical as opposed to a legal definition?
The medical term is that the death happened at the hands of another.
Now, is there also a protocol in place that a sample of blood is taken at or near time of autopsy as a matter of routine?
Yes.
And how is that prepared?
And the blood is drawn from the body and then placed into a container for preservation, and then sealed to maintain a chain of custody until it is submitted to the lab for further testing.
And was a toxicological screen conducted in this case?
Yes.
Is there any alcohol or indication of any common drugs of abuse detected?
None.
Okay. Typically, as in this case, is the blood that's collected also prepared on a blood stain card that is sent to the relevant law enforcement agency for serological or DNA analysis?
Such a card is prepared in anticipation that law enforcement will come to pick it up for their evidence.
I was worried, y'all. I almost was in tears. I didn't want to cry. What's a good kitty? See, I was taking. It's a beautiful spring day. The temperature is fabulous. I was just taking a nap, Mama. I was just napping. As much as my son says he hates this cat, he loves her. Mm-hmm.
Testified before the grand jury, is that correct?
That's correct.
The testimony you gave today, was that the same in terms of accuracy as it was before the grand jury?
Hello, kitty. Yeah. Hello, Sticky Widget.
My recollection
Lord,
is
oh,
that the
today's the
testimony
last
is the
day,
same.
y'all.
Yes.
To be in this month's drawing.
And when you testified before the grand jury, were you shown any photographs of potential weapons as you were today?
I don't recall that.
Well, if I told you reviewing the grand jury transcript, there was no reference to. Could I have the photograph, please, of 155? You recall being shown this photograph, which is exhibit 155, a few minutes ago?
Yes.
And were you shown this photograph
Thank you
at
so
the time of the grand
much.
jury?
Well, you are so
I don't believe so.
awesome. Thank you so
Giving
very, very
testimony
much.
today regarding
Touch my heart.
the size, how sharp the sides of the blade would be or have to be, things of that nature. You recall that?
I'm going to object, Your Honor, that you
And I
say
got
it's
kitty
the
fur
evidence
all
yet.
over my mouth.
Excuse me, you're making a speaking objection. I'll be sustained.
Did you give testimony concerning the blade and how it would have appeared in terms of length, whether it was sharp or serrated? Do you recall that testimony here today?
Objection, Your Honor. The compound,
Sustained.
part of it is true and part of it is not.
No
Dr.
talking
Umko,
objections. You're going to get in
Did
trouble,
you
my
meet
dear.
with either of the prosecutors before your testimony today?
Cat fur.
Yes.
And which prosecutor? Or both?
I met with Beth Silverman.
And when did you meet with her?
I met with her today, and I've also met with her, I don't recall which day, but also over the telephone.
Okay. And did she show you the exhibit that has been marked People's 155?
Is this before me, Exhibit 155?
The one that's on your screen, yes.
No.
Have you ever seen that weapon before, that knife?
I have not.
But she asked you a question about that knife during your testimony. Is that correct?
I object. It's been asked and answered.
No, it has not. Overruled.
Yes.
And you gave some testimony concerning a serrated edge. Do you recall that?
Yes.
The knife that was used to kill Fabio Sementilli, according to your autopsy of his body, did that? Well, let me withdraw that. Your Honor, I have a document that is labeled Victim Sementilli Autopsy Exam amended.
Is this an autopsy report?
He's
This is
got
an
something
autopsy
sneaky up
report,
his.
and the number, Sementilli number, base number is 0000332. And I approached,
You used to have that marked?
yes,
621.
Dr. Uko, do you recognize that's exhibit 21?
Breathing better.
21?
I don't recognize this document.
Did you prepare it?
The preparation is not consistent with how I would put together documents, and it doesn't look familiar to me.
Do you see the name, third line down from the top? It says Dr. Uko. Is that your name?
Yes.
Your Honor, can you approach?
All right.
Yeah, you need to approach on this, my dear. I pulled thread and didn't need it. Y'all, my Vera Bradley cheaters. I can see the beads a little better, y'all. I have to say, I thought she was going to give us a bunch of crying and boo-hooing and all of that good stuff, but she didn't give it to us. I was disappointed. I was waiting for the show. Well, but honestly, if they give a whole lot of problems, they are asked to get up and leave. She did get emotional. I'll give her that. She did get emotional. But dang. Well, you know what? I will say this. She didn't actually unalive him. And I can see that those pictures were gruesome because they accidentally, in the first day of trial, showed a picture of him humped over the table, bludgeoned and bloodied. And so we saw a photo of how bad it really was by accident. You're a computer geek, so case sensitive is near and dear to my existence. Yeah. Well, welcome aboard, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, KDL, for hopping in. Thank you, Sticky Widget, for hopping in. We appreciate you so very much. It's been a day. So today, just as I was about ready to go live, there was a car accident that happened right outside of our business. And I went and did the first responder deal. And then came back in and started doing live. And then we discovered I had a visitor, and we discovered Kitty was nowhere to be found. And we were having a coronary. I was starting to get a little emotional at the thought of thinking that she somehow got out of the shop. And thank God she's alive and she's well. She was sleeping under my footstool. I got to get the door. I'll be right back. I had to grab the door real quick. You know, I have ordered something from online and it said it would be delivered in 5 days, and now we're looking at 6 weeks. And I'm getting irritated, and I thought that was gonna be my package. Dagnabbit. I was hoping it was gonna be my package. Why are we still in I don't know what they're arguing about, but they're arguing about something good. So that's where we are. Um, I am excited because March is my birthday month, and I want to do a very long birthday live, kind of like what Runkle does. Um, and I have a ton of cosmetic stuff that I want to give away. Good stuff, nothing used or tacky. And I'm going to have a bunch of gifts and prizes, and I want to have a birthday bash. So, what do y'all think about that? Dagnabbit, I hate it when that happens. I know, right? Well, what pisses me off is here they charge you out the for shipping, and you pay guaranteed by a certain date, and it ain't coming. It don't show up. It ain't gonna be there. And I'm like, oh man, I need it. I've got a big concert. I never do anything like this for myself. I never go to concerts. And this is a CC Winan. I know y'all don't know her. Um, but she's coming in and I want to go to her concert. Ah! Sorry, my son. Family, kids, what can I say? What can I say? Does anybody know who CC Winan is? If I play anything of hers, I get demonetized. Anything, I'll get demonetized. So I've accidentally had it pop up here and I got demonetized, and that sucked royally. I know I got a fan blowing on me. It's messing with my my mm, maybe if I just brush them off to the side. Oh, my bangs. There we go. Got a hair in my eye. So, this morning someone asked what about that car wreck this morning. Let me pull up the picture so you can see. Matt, you going to take care of that before you have that problem again? Nope. I'm looking for the pictures. Where'd they go? Downloads? Oh, here they are. That's weird. So anyway, there was a bad car wreck that I was this morning we dealt with. Luckily, I think everybody's going to be fine. Although I keep looking on the web page to see if the guy that was driving the truck that caused the accident got arrested because he popped into an undercover or unmarked police officer. He bounced off of that car and then rear-ended another person and pushed them good 50 yards down the road and then off over a sidewalk and curb and off into a grass uphill before coming to stop before running into the bank. Because the bank's right across our driveway and it happened right there. This is not a quick sidebar. Oh, by the way, I want to see if you guys can hear this because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Hold on. Oh, I got to get it up and running. I forgot about that. Really? You're going to be that finicky? Got to get up and going. Continue. Okay, I got to do it. I think we finally got my Delgado stuff figured out. We'll see. We'll see how it works. Studio. Okay.
Sidebar.
Tell me what that just said if you heard it. I think he was speeding while they were working on the victim in this case. He was getting tested by the popo doing the nose and walking. Well, data analyst is a good thing to do. How do you like your job? Yay, it worked. It worked. Oh my gosh. I don't know why it's working all of a sudden, but my Stream Deck was not working for quite some time and I was getting quite perturbed. So, let's see.
When all else fails, read the instructions.
I got to say I like that one. And then the other one is
You can't really think about life. Just gotta let it happen.
that may be harder to hear. Um, Sidebar. Yep. Let's see about this. That's good for the drawings. Here's my sub drop. Guard your ears. We're just hanging until they come back, y'all. They are on a very long sidebar. So how many more years do you got to hang on until retirement, love? There it goes. How many more years? Here, I'll get this. I'll share this. Okay, let me see which way I got to go. Nope. So this truck pushed that car up the hill, and that big lard ass of a woman right there, that'd be me. I changed shirts because I was interpreting today. Yes, I know, that's me. And next to me was a nurse practitioner, but she's all like, yeah, I don't do this, but if he codes or you need me to monitor vitals, just let me know. So about 4 to 5 until PO. Yeah. And yeah, I get that. I get that. So this pickup, this guy's back seat was laid flat and he couldn't lay back. I mean, it was like in the floorboard, but there wasn't a floorboard anymore because this guy's engine and all that was inside this window. Yep. And I know where the accident happened because the window popped out and was on the ground. But look at that. That ain't no fun. And when they put the tow truck on it to pull it out, this came with it. I don't know how they separated them or if they ended up having to haul them together. But yeah. And I mean to tell you, that guy wanted to get out of there, and I was trying to clear his C-spine. I was trying to clear his mental. Luckily, everything was good. Not a lot of pain. He bit the hell out of his tongue. Luckily, didn't bite it in half or off, just the side and a little bit on the tip. But everywhere inside that vehicle was so gnarled up that there was no way I could have gotten in there if I had to and secured his neck. I tried to, but he just touching him, he got claustrophobic. But I was really, really concerned and wanting to make sure that, he was yeah, well, I hear and right there. And that's the only thing he had. EMT got there. I told him what I had did. The cop told him what they had talked to him about it. And I told him he doesn't have any apparent pain, palpable pain. He's cognizant. He knows his name, the president, the date, the day. He can tell me his mother and father's names and addresses. So, um, they went ahead and went through it again with him for their purposes and let him out of the vehicle. But I have seen people, and the police officer told him, dude, I have seen people walk out of a wreck and end up having a broken back. And they didn't have any pain. And then all of a sudden they drop. And that's what I was telling them. But sometimes it's really hard because I can be telling somebody something and, and, and they're hearing me, but they're not hearing me. And sometimes I went ahead and I called the cop over there because he was really trying to get out of that car. And he was fabulous. He came over. Hey, sir, how you doing? Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know you're claustrophobic. Can you just give me a minute? They're on their way. I mean, he was fabulous. And sometimes it just takes a different person, different tone, and sometimes different sex of a person, man to man versus woman to man. Um, he was just wanting to get out of the car, and I don't blame him. Oh, yeah. I told him, "Hey, dude, I got you." And I was touching I told him I'm gonna put my hand on the back of your neck, but that just claustrophobic him a whole lot more. And so what I ended up doing was just telling him, "Look, I've got to rest my hand on your back because if you go back, there's no seat anymore." And he went to turn around and he was like, I said, "Please don't turn, don't." I mhm. Yeah. But thank God, I think he's okay. He's gonna hurt like a mofo tomorrow. Actually, in 3 days, it's gonna be really bad. But, I feel bad for the guy, but thank God he's alive. Thank God we didn't have to do any life-saving measures on this accident. But, yeah, that's pretty heavy duty. So even though it doesn't look bad here, this door was pushed into the front door. Had to give it a really good pull to open it. Um, and then everything that was in the far left corner trunk of the car was now behind him, and the seat was on top of that. So, yeah, that was the kind of accident we had, and I don't know why we're on a break, but we are on a break. Give me a break. Give me a break. Oh my God, am I telling my age? For those of you who wanted to know, here is my studio without me sitting in. I have a little bit different configuration on the monitors and the computers, but that's my little hole in the wall. And it is a very little room. I'm standing at the back of the room. It's almost the size of a closet, actually. Well, no, someone's walk in closet. So, yes. So that's how my morning began. That's how it began. I'll tell you what, my morning was better than his. My morning was a lot more better than his. And his poor family are on a cruise, and I cannot imagine being his mama and daddy getting a call while they're in the middle of the ocean and his son saying, "I've been in a wreck, my car is totaled." Um, but the good news is at least he's able to call them and tell them, and us not calling them and telling them. Because I'm a volunteer emergency services firefighter and chaplain. And if I'm calling you about an accident, you know darn well it ain't good. And so lucky for him, I'm not having to make that phone call. So that's good. But I got to tell you, anybody who knows anything about fire, about what we just witnessed, you expect to see a whole lot worse. So thank God he's okay, or will be okay. So for those of you who missed this morning session, some of you may be glad you did. Some of you may be glad you didn't. They were talking about they had a officer testify, and then they had a lab tech person testify that did the DNA and the testing on a white substance that was found, white creamy substance that was natural bodily fluid from a man that was found that had been deposited into a toothpaste tube and was put into a manila envelope to be mailed to Monica Sementilli. And I'm thinking, either she's doing one of two things. Either she herself is trying to get pregnant, or somebody in jail is wanting to get pregnant and she's trying to help them. All I know is that is disgusting. And the poor lab person who is highly qualified, who did a phenomenal job, and I have to give her kudos. She did a phenomenal job, y'all, of testifying and keeping it as clinical as you could in discussing a man's natural fluids and his little soldiers. And I found it interesting because I have this.
Howdy, soldier.
So that came in real handy. Yeah, they won't turn that boat around. Now, if it's a death or something like that, they can make port a call and then they can fly home. But luckily for this young man, I say young man, he was younger than I was, but boy, that guy was big, strong, and let me tell you, it would take all of my might to keep that door shut. If you noticed, I was laying on that door. I was doing everything I could to keep him in that car. Now, if he was going to make his way out of that car, I wouldn't force it, but I'm doing everything I can to convince him to stay in that vehicle until EMS gets there for two reasons. One, and anybody who's in this world knows that once you say you're a first responder on scene, you are now responsible for that person. And oh yeah, no, you're responsible for that person. And if you don't do your due diligence and he gets hurt worse, it's on me. So when I got on scene, there was a nurse practitioner there, but I love our nurses. I think our nurses are fabulous. You can't survive. You can't survive without them. But people think because they're a nurse or a podiatrist or a radiologist that at an accident scene, they're going to know what to do. They're not. Unless you're a trauma nurse. If you tell me you're a trauma nurse, honey boo, just tell me what you need me to do. You're in charge. I relinquish to you. You low man on totem pole. And but if and she flat out said, no, I can monitor vital signs, I can do all that, but as far as knowing what to do in this situation, I can do my best. But yeah, keeping him calm and all that, that's experience. Yeah. Well, yes, that's true. That's true. They are not first responders, but I have been on an accident scene where I had multiple victims and I rolled up on it. Nobody was there yet. And a lady said, "I'm a nurse, get out of my way." And I said, "Ma'am, I'm a first responder, get out of my way." "Oh, I outrank you." And I said, "Ma'am, you don't get out of my way, I'm going to have you arrested." I said, "You can help me or you'll be arrested. But right now I'm first responder on scene. I am in control." There wasn't even a cop yet. And about a couple seconds later, a cop came up and she goes, "I'm a nurse." And I said, "I'm first responder." And he goes, "Ma'am, you're in charge. What do you need?" And unfortunately, I told him, I said, we may need life flight. It was a motorcyclist, and she was in the group with the motorcyclists when they were riding. And that's the other thing. It wasn't so much that she was a nurse, it was also the fact that she was emotionally involved. She knew the victim. And when you're emotionally charged and involved, it's really hard to make the correct decisions without being in a place of jeopardy, is what I call it, because you're not thinking as clearly. I'm not thinking anything other than protect airway, do this, do that. When you're emotionally involved, you can't do that. If you have to, do it, but as soon as somebody else comes in, you need to back off and let them take care of the victim. You're too close to it. And that's one thing I've told people before. So anyway, luckily everybody survived, but the guy did have some damage to his spine. And then I was going to send somebody to come up and get a caller from the house, but luckily EMS got there quickly enough. So that was good. Hey, 80s music man, how are you? Once again, for some unknown, God knows why reason, we're in another extended break in the Monica Sementilli trial. And the bad thing is this trial is in day 20. And we are nearing the end of the prosecution. Now, it does not surprise me if anybody was here for the prosecution's grand opening, and I say grand opening because that's what it felt like. She literally, and I mean literally, this woman ranted and raged for a day and a half in the opening, gave every Joe Blow, every detailed comment that she could make, and it was the longest opening I've ever experienced. So this does not surprise me that the case has taken this long, although the judge was joking after that opening. I think we're going to be here.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Ubko, I think I misstated something that I was showing you.
Come on, get us on screen. I hear him.
21. You've never seen that before, is that correct?
Mom,
That's
get it up
correct.
there.
Right now.
Before right now, that's
So
correct.
this is not an amendment to your autopsy.
No, it is not.
In fact, you don't even really know what it is, except what is written
Thank
on
you so much, Sticky Whitwood.
The
Oh
style
my
doesn't-
gosh, who got
doesn't
the
look like an
membership?
official document, more like an email, maybe.
Let me move this over here so I can see.
When you
Thank you,
are
Elizabeth. Pretty
was there only one
great.
autopsy conducted in this case?
Camel, thank
Yes.
you, gosh,
And
so
by you.
much. You're so amazing.
When you conduct
Thank you so
autopsies,
much.
and let me just limit it to this case. Was there a detective or anyone from law enforcement present during the autopsy, as I understand sometimes occurs in autopsies? Is that right?
Yes.
So it sometimes occurs, correct?
With certain cases, yes.
And just so the jury is educated, and I am too, for what reason would a detective be present during an autopsy?
Chain of evidence. Chain of evidence.
The
Gather
medical
evidence.
examiner's office, the goal is to prevent premature deaths. And so we often cooperate with agencies that are put in the position to help prevent premature deaths. And in this circumstance, law enforcement person is investigating the death. And so it is common when there's a homicide, they attend just to get information from me regarding my findings.
And information regarding your findings in the case that you were
Preserve evidence.
doing an autopsy on, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I take it you've had detectives or law enforcement at previous autopsies you conducted?
Yes.
And in those autopsies, and I'm trying to get your protocol or procedure, do they ever take notes, to your knowledge, regarding the autopsy?
I often see the detectives taking notes. That's correct.
And when they take these notes, are they required regarding your rules and regulations to show you any reports they have prepared as a result of those notes?
Their notes are not needed for my portion of the examination, so I don't request the subsequent report that they generate.
Okay. Are you aware or not that they do take notes and prepare reports?
Yes,
Are you not concerned at all that the conclusions in those reports, if there are any, are accurate?
It's argumentative.
Oh my
just in the
God, that's
background.
not his job,
Is it your
y'all.
policy to review those notes to determine if the reports to determine if they're accurate?
Objection asked and answered.
no, we have our own independent process, so I don't require me to review their notes.
Well, let me get to this case. That's before the jury and
Come
the
on,
court.
Get off.
Was there a detective or anyone from
Not
law
start
enforcement, to your knowledge, present during the autopsy of Fabio Sementilli?
Yes,
Do you recall who that was?
yes.
And who was that?
Detective Fillmore with the LAPD.
And do you know who Detective Fillmore is other than his name?
I'm unclear what is meant by who he is other than his name.
All right,
What-
that's a poor question. Do you know if he was involved in the investigation of the death of Fabio Sementilli?
It's my expectation, yes.
Okay, did you
Sustained. Stricken.
specifically ask him why he was there?
I did not.
Do you recall whether or not he remained throughout the autopsy?
It is common practice that the detective remains for the duration of the autopsy. There are some circumstances where they leave maybe earlier, but I don't recall specifically for this case.
So you don't have any independent recollection whether Detective Fillmore Plourde, Plourde, stayed for the entire autopsy?
For the entire being all the way up to the point that I was done and leaving the autopsy, no, I don't.
Okay. During the course of how long did the autopsy take, if you recall, approximately?
I don't recall for this specific case. I may have that in my report here. I can derive it from my report, but otherwise I don't recall.
Would you mind, if it's in your report, finding it and letting us know?
I'll look at timestamps to see if I can do that.
1T. And we're not even in the
You don't have the time to do it now, is that what you're saying?
We're still on
No, I will look at
prosecution.
timestamps to see if I can
Oh,
do
I'm
that.
sorry, thank you.
Do that now.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I didn't know if you said this evening.
20. Yeah, y'all.
I don't have the specific timestamps. However, a case like this would take me on the order of somewhere between an hour and a half approximately.
Okay. And do you take notes during the course of the autopsy?
No.
Yes.
Do you keep those notes?
The notes are maintained in my the diagrams and then also my report.
So there's nothing independent you have, independent notes, other than what is in your official autopsy report, which includes diagrams.
Oh my God. What are you
That's
getting at? Is there a discrepancy?
At the conclusion of the autopsy, did Detective Fillmore Plourde ask you any questions?
Yes.
The name I have is Fillmore in the record.
Okay.
I don't have the other name you mentioned.
I'll just call him Detective Fillmore, and you can assume I'm talking about
Geez,
the
you
same
know
person who was present at your
About. You're
autopsy.
asking the questions. Come on now.
Thank you. Can you repeat the question then?
Yes, did he ask you any questions either during or at the conclusion of the autopsy as to your findings?
Yes.
And do you recall whether or not it was during the autopsy or after it had concluded?
It's the usual is during the course of the autopsy, as things are being discovered, they're being shared.
So it's safe to say you don't have an independent recollection of this particular autopsy as to what you may have said or not said to Detective Fillmore?
Not specifically.
Okay. But the policy would be that during the course of the autopsy, well, let me find out. Is it that you orally state what you're finding as you write it down? Or do you respond to questions of Detective Fillmore, or both?
Objection,
In
compound.
my interactions in this case is to share information about my findings. Questions posed to the detective is not part of the standard routine. I can't even remember a case where I had questions actually for the detective.
So at least policy-wise, whatever Detective Fillmore may have prepared, and I take it you have not seen the report that has his name on it that I showed you, Exhibit 621, correct?
No, I don't have that report.
Okay. So what you're saying is what the standard procedure is, you will orally state your findings and he takes notes, and then when he's done, you have no idea what he wrote or did not write in his report, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So let me go through this and ask you if
They're
you
two
made these
independent reports.
statements to Detective Fillmore. Did you tell him that the victim?
It's overruled.
Did you tell Detective Fillmore that the victim, Fabio Sementilli, sustained 7 total stab wounds in 4 different locations of the body?
Possibly.
That would be consistent with what's in my report. So I think that would be consistent.
Okay, what I'll be asking you is that an accurate statement?
Possibly.
So there are, speaking of 4 segments of the body, I would have to interpret what parts of the body that equaled 4 in this circumstance. There's the right side of the neck, the left side of the neck, the chest, and then the leg. And in that sense, I would agree that there are 4 parts of the body that were stabbed.
Okay. And now
He can't
parts
tell
is
you
different than wounds.
what
Isn't that
word
correct?
exactly said.
Parts would be the region of the body which is distinct from a wound. Yes.
A wound would be each individual, in the case of a knife, stab wound, correct?
Yes, there would be wounds would be separate. Yes.
How many total stab wounds did you find in the body of Fabio Sementilli?
So there were stab wounds of the.
Can you just give us the total? I'm sorry. Or do you need to count them up as you're doing this?
I think that I can do it one of 2 ways.
Either way you want.
Can
I'm sorry.
have me look at. I can look at the report and give you the exact number.
Whatever you prefer.
Okay.
Which I take it is
He needs to talk it through to add it up.
Correct.
Okay.
I am breathing so much better. I kind of freaked out about the cat.
Of the
David
7
Epler's life.
wounds that were described, 1 was described as an incised wound, and then the other 6 were stab wounds.
So is it an accurate statement that in total the victim sustained 7 total stab wounds?
No.
The correct response or answer is 6. And then 1, what was the last one
Where's
you
the cat?
labeled?
Incised wound.
And what's the difference between an incised wound and a stab wound?
An incised wound is where the wound is longer than it is deep.
So like, if I were to cut my arm this way, just superficially, it could be 8 inches long, but it would not be very deep. You know what I'm describing?
I believe so.
Okay, and your answer is?
If it's a superficial, then that would be an incised wound because it's not very deep and it's just longer than it is deep.
And how deep approximately would it have to be before you would describe it as a stab wound?
That would be, in that circumstance of 8 inches, then it would be anywhere above 8 inches, then it would be qualified as a stab wound.
You mean 8 inches in length?
In depth,
In depth?
yes.
Were any of these wounds in this case 8 inches deep?
No.
Well, then I'm a little confused.
I could perhaps clarify.
Please.
It's relative to the wound as it's seen from the outside. If it's a stab wound, it goes
Looking for the cat
deeper
again.
than it is long. So it's always relative to the wound, how it
Exciting.
appears from the outside is what defines it as a stab wound or an incised wound.
Okay, thank you. I feel educated and a little stupid, but thank you very much.
Oh, congratulations.
So-
You feel stupid. Yes, you said it.
The statement that there were 4 stab wounds,
I have no patience.
approximately 4.5 inches deep. I'm sorry. The statement there were 7 total stab wounds in 4 different locations is an accurate statement?
Again, you've been asked and answered, mistakes the evidence.
So overruled.
Incorrect.
Okay. Correct answer is the 6th, and what you said the 7th was, correct?
6 stab wounds, and then 1 would be qualified as an incised wound.
And the statement in 4 different locations of the body, is that a
Doug?
description you used during the course of the autopsy?
That's true.
That's not my common practice to use that sort of description.
All right. Is that an accurate statement?
If I were to describe how many parts of the body were involved, I would also include the arm that had those superficial wounds. So then, therefore, 5 regions of
Defensive.
the body.
So you're confident that whatever you said that day aloud, if you did,
Duh.
to Detective Fillmore or in his presence, would have been 5 different locations if you were describing the locations of the wounds, correct?
If I was asked that question at the time, my answer would have been 5.
Or if you just said it out loud?
Dude.
I'm going to object. It calls for speculation unless it has.
That would be true, and the
I'll
doctor
rephrase
said
it.
that's not his type of language, counsel.
Okay. Dr. Ubko, when a detective
Counsel
is
is
present
trying to get the doctor to
during
language
the
that he
autopsy,
wants.
are you verbally describing what you find to assist him in his notes, as opposed to if no one is present and then you'd just be talking to yourself?
So yes, the information is provided to the detective, whether they're there or not. They can also receive my report after the fact, but commonplace is that they come during the autopsy.
And do you describe the results as you find them, or do they ask you questions at the conclusion or some other procedure?
It's rare for the detective to ask me questions. It is more of as a physician, sharing my findings of what I saw was significant that caused the death.
So you're confident in saying you would not have said in 4 different locations of the body?
It would not be my expectation that my answer would have been that.
All right. Did you indicate or state
Would you,
during the
would
course
you
of
like
the
me to show
autopsy
you? I
that
can
one
show you.
stab, there was 1 stab wound in the left chest, piercing the left ventricle chamber of the heart, which was a fatal wound?
I would say that that statement would be an interpretation of what I said.
Is it an accurate statement?
It is accurate, except for the word fatal is not one that I use in my practice.
So if the
What
word
do you
fatal
use?
is there, it did not come from you.
The wording that I use is not fatal. Yes, from when
Did you use a word meaning that the wound by itself was the cause, could have been the cause of death by itself?
Yes.
So, okay. The term fatal wound, though, is not used by you, but it's an accurate statement, correct?
No.
I would not describe it as accurate. That's how I understand people would understand it, but that's not what I would say is accurate.
Can you tell me, if you would please, what the distinction would be between a fatal wound and what you found concerning that wound to the right leg? The left, did I tell you left chest or right leg? I'm
Are
sorry.
you trying to confuse him? Because you're doing a good job, Bo.
Yes, left chest. I'm sorry. What would you say?
The wording I would use is immediately life-threatening injury, because I think it gets rid of any potential confusion.
Okay.
And life-threatening and fatal is two different ways, because
Concerning the
fatal,
right
for
leg,
example-
did you indicate that one stab wound was approximately?
all right, say for example, this guy in the car wreck had a wound that you and I would consider fatal. But it would only be fatal if he did not get appropriate treatment and care in a quick enough time. Depending on the level of care he receives, depends on the timing of the care, depending on all these different variables, it could be life-threatening or life-ending, but does not mean that it is 100% guaranteed fatal. And this attorney is wanting him to play with words, and this ME is not
4.5
playing the
inches
game.
deep, severing the femoral artery.
2 more to
Yes.
go
That is an accurate
out
statement.
of 10.
Yes.
This is what it looks like.
And would you characterize that as a fatal wound, or would you characterize it as what you just indicated?
I want him to get off. See, you got 2 more.
Vague, is that your objection? Vague? It's overruled.
Get off of the questioning.
You understand the question?
Yes.
Can you answer it?
Yes.
Thank you.
I would describe that as an immediately life-threatening wound.
Just as
There you
you
go.
described the
Life-threatening.
wound to the left chest, correct?
Hey,
Correct.
Next,
he could have been lucky and had an EMT who knew exactly what to do and got there just in a nick of time to save his life. Threatening. But if it's not done, then his life is over. I know we're mincing words here, but that's what this attorney's trying to do. So I want to play along a little bit with him.
a wound to the right neck / face, 4 stab wounds right to left and downward. Let me stop there. Is that an accurate statement?
Why are you doing this?
Overruled.
Each stab wound had its direction, and I believe the majority were in the direction stated.
Right to left and downward.
Yes.
But you're saying there may have been other wounds to the neck face area in addition to those 4?
The collectively describing them as all having the same features there are some directions that were consistent throughout for all of them, the 4, and the back to front was consistent, and downward as well.
And all right, let me go on. 1 stab wound severed the carotid artery. That is
Corduroy?
the correct statement.
Corduroy? Carotid.
The carotid artery, yes.
Carotid, I'm sorry. I should know that. I
Carotid.
get the test every month.
Hey, dude, you should
Carotid artery.
now on his attorney.
Correct.
And if it said fatal wound, you would
Oh, then I'm
use the
sorry.
language
Oh,
you used with the other 2, immediately life-threatening. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
And finally, an injury to the left neck one V-shaped stab wound. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes.
Did you, in the course of your autopsy, estimate the length of the blade used by the murderer?
No.
Did Detective Fillmore ask you what the approximate or exact length of the blade was, or minimal length? Let me ask you this. Did he ask you any questions about the length of the blade
Spit it
used
out.
by the
Dubba,
suspect,
dubba, 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 dubba.
regarding the stab wound in the victim's right leg?
There were no discussions about the length of the weapon that was used.
Do you, as you sit here right now, or in your notes, have an answer to the question of what the minimal length of the blade would have been to cause the stab wound in the victim's right leg?
No.
And you cannot give that answer even now at this time, reviewing your notes or anything else?
Correct.
This doctor's like, dude, I have a morgue full of autopsies to
The
do.
right leg
Get me
injury
off the stand. I'm falling behind.
would have to have been caused by a weapon that was at least 4.5 inches long. Is that a correct statement?
No.
The wounds, and we're talking
Like he's
about
trying
all
to
the
not fall
wounds,
asleep.
were they consistent
Try not to go to
with a
sleep.
one-sided edged weapon without a serrated edge?
Yes.
Okay, guys, do you see
Meaning
what I
that every wound that you observed, let's stick to the ones that
trying
were
not to go to sleep?
the possible cause of death. How many of those were there? Was there 4 of those, or you tell me?
That would be my husband.
There were 3 that were immediately life-threatening.
Okay. Would they have to have been caused, or were they caused by a one-sided edged weapon without a serrated edge?
Yeah.
I couldn't answer it in that way as asked.
Did you make the statement, or is it an accurate statement? I'll leave it at that. That the wounds were consistent with a one-sided edge weapon without a serrated edge.
It would be consistent with that, yes.
Does that mean it
Consistent does not guarantee it.
could also be inconsistent with a weapon without a serrated edge?
Unable to be determined.
That would be incorrect.
In other words, what I'm saying is, in this case,
Dubba-dubba,
those
dubba-dubba,
wounds,
dubba-dubba.
they had to have been caused, the life-threatening wounds, with a one-sided edged weapon without a serrated edge.
No, can't rule that out.
That's one possibility.
What's the other possibility?
The other possibility that there was a serrated edge.
So you're saying, as you sit here today, it could have been caused by any type of knife with or
One-sided
without a
blade.
serrated edge?
I would further qualify with a single-edged knife with or without serration.
Would it have to have had a minimal length?
No.
Did you tell that to
Maximum
Detective
length,
Fillmore?
yes.
That discussion would be very unusual in my practice, so I don't believe that would have happened here.
I like he
The
is
victim
such a
sustained a
med nerd.
shallow scratch
I
or
love it.
non-fatal laceration to the left armpit area, approximately 10 inches in length, running vertically. Is that an accurate statement?
No,
Were you asked to describe was there a shallow scratch or non-fatal laceration to the left armpit area?
the description words for what it is what I cannot agree to.
What can't you agree to?
The description of a laceration as the term.
If I took that out and said victim sustained a shallow scratch to the left armpit area approximately 10 inches in length running vertically, would that be an accurate statement?
That would be an accurate interpretation of what I shared.
So the word you have
Fed up.
problem with is non-fatal laceration, is that right?
Correct.
Were you able to ascertain the order of the stab wounds you observed in the victim?
No.
Were you able to determine
Would you
if
say
there
that if
was
someone
more
is
than
missing
one
a
weapon
head, would that
used?
not be a serrated edge?
No.
Were you able to determine
By the way, I
whether
love your
Fabio
thing there.
Sementilli was alive prior to all the stab wounds?
Yes.
Yes.
And that's based on what?
All the wounds that were examined showed bleeding. In order for bleeding to happen, your heart has to be beating, that you're alive, and therefore these injuries happened while he was alive.
Was there a rapid
Objection.
bleeding that you observed in the course?
Objection, Your Honor. Wait. I haven't done this in a while. I haven't done it in a while.
Objection, Your Honor. Stupid lawyer. Asking stupid questions. This is a farce.
Stupid is as stupid does.
This is the most stupidest questions I've heard in a long time from a lawyer.
Is that an act? Well, let me change that. Regarding the wound to the thigh,
Your law degree.
I want to know.
the wound to the jugular vein, the perforation of the right carotid artery, and the perforation of the left ventricle of the heart. Would all those injuries be extremely severe and tend to bleed rather rapidly?
It's my expectation, because there are large vessels, including the heart, that the bleeding would be expected to be rapidly, although I don't observe the rate itself.
And was that your testimony that you gave at the grand jury, if you recall?
I don't recall what question was asked for that, and if that was my answer.
All right, let me give you the question and ask you if you answered yes.
Do you know how many grand juries and
Given
jury
the,
trials
not
you
just the
testified to?
thigh, the wound to the thigh that we talked about, but the perforation of the jugular vein, perforation of the right carotid artery, and the perforation
Objection,
of the
Your
left
Honor. He
ventricle
cannot
of the
read
heart.
that into testimony. He can hand him the document and have him review the document and review what he said. But this is pissing me off. Objection.
Again, would those all be injuries that would be extremely severe and tend to bleed rather rapidly? Do you remember that question?
I don't recall that specific question.
May I approach, Your Honor? Would you read, this is on
You
page
should have already.
47
Oh,
of the grand jury. Could you read just to yourself lines 20 to 26?
he should have already approached. This is ridiculous.
Yes. Does that refresh your memory as to whether or not that question was asked of you at the grand jury?
Yes.
And was it asked, and was your answer yes?
Yes.
So would you expect death to have occurred in a very short period of time, given those injuries?
Yes.
The expected time frame would be minutes for the death to occur.
So minutes,
Oh,
not seconds?
There's too much for them to really be any good.
Minutes, not
way,
seconds.
Unless he's already
So-
already on the operating table.
Again, could you tell us what is your estimation of how long the victim lived from the first injury or first wound until he would have died?
Well, that's going to be hard to say because you can't tell which
It's
one.
on the order of minutes, given that the brain's response to blood loss had started.
Did you say previously about 10 minutes, or did I get that wrong?
That's incorrect.
Can you give an estimate of how many minutes based on these wounds to this alleged this victim?
No.
Everybody, this is really getting to be a little bit.
Would there be any way, other than if you were a doctor, for the murderers to know whether or not the victim, in this case, Fabio Sementilli, was dead or not? And at what time that, well, he was dead, but at what time that occurred?
Even the doctor can't be 100% sure.
Would you were asked about defensive wounds, correct?
Yes.
Was there an approximate time when you would have
Excuse me.
not expected the victim to have been able to fight back in any way because of the severity of the wounds and the time that had elapsed in the bleeding?
I believe you're asking if he could have been incapacitated.
Yes, thank you.
There is, with the wounds that would have been bleeding, I don't have an expectation of when incapacitation would have occurred given these wounds.
Shortly.
But it would have to have been sometime within that 10-minute period, correct?
I can't tell you 10 minutes. You're trying
Do you
to
have
put
an
it in a
estimated
window.
time of how long Fabio Sementilli lived from the moment of the first injury until he was dead?
The best estimate is an order of minutes.
But no more specific than minutes?
He's trying to get a specific time because he's got a timeline in his defense he's going to give. And he's trying to get him to fit his timeline and he ain't given.
No more specific.
And it is your statement or testimony that there were no defensive wounds for whatever reason.
There were no wounds that would be classically described as defensive wounds observed.
Which means in layman's lingo, he was not, there's no evidence that he was able to fight back because of the severity of the wound.
Two men overtook him and quickly
It's not based on the severity of the wounds, but rather just looking at the body if there were any defensive wounds, which I did not see any.
Okay, so that's based on the assumption that if he were able to, he likely would have fought back or resisted in some way.
Sustain.
Well, you did give a statement that you would have expected, absent some occurrences like surprise or so forth, for there to be defensive wounds, correct?
It's a possibility.
There are scenarios that I shared earlier about someone who may not be able to have defensive wounds. Yes.
Okay, and I'm not going to repeat that. You gave the reasons why, correct?
That's correct.
Why are you going there, man?
So getting back to Detective Fillmore, you
Poor
don't
Detective
recall
Fillmore.
him asking any specific questions of you following the autopsy, is that correct?
No.
What is correct?
It's correct that I don't recall any specific questions at the end of the autopsy. Common practice is just a courteous thank you sort of discussion, but no further questions usually.
If there had been questions and answers by you, would you have made a notation of that in your notes?
Yes.
No.
Do you know who Detective Fillmore is?
In what sense?
Have you ever come in contact with him before hearing his name today?
Yes.
And you know him how?
It's my recollection in my notes. I note who attended the autopsy, and I noted Detective Fillmore from LAPD. This was 8 years ago.
So your notes indicate, and your testimony would be that he did attend the autopsy, correct?
That's correct.
Did you have your note? Is everything you're testifying to today based on your notes as opposed to your actual memory and recollection?
This is based off of my efforts in the report to memorialize my findings, and so that is what I'm able to testify to.
Okay. So
Guys, 3 years ago, he
as
does
far as you remember, and
300,
according to your
400 a
notes,
year
once the autopsy was over, Detective Fillmore likely thanked you and left, correct?
That's correct.
And he never shared with you any of his notes or reports or anything that he had written down as during the course or after the autopsy?
Not necessary.
Sustained.
Did you have any contact with Detective Fillmore again after that date regarding this case?
No, I have no other recollection.
Did you discuss, well, let me, I forgive me if I asked this before. You have or have not seen the item Exhibit 621 before today?
I have not seen that document that's in your hands, no.
It was not brought up to you at all by the prosecution team, either the attorneys or the investigating officers prior to your testimony today?
No.
Was Detective Fillmore's report or name, well, let me break it down, was his name mentioned to you at all during the course of your preparation for your testimony today?
No.
And were any of the findings that I have gone through with you in his report or notations in his report mentioned to you or discussed with you in any way with the prosecution or its team prior to your testimony today?
Objection assumes facts not in evidence.
Sustained.
I read to you the contents of this report. You recall that?
Your Honor, I'm going to object again.
Why are you reading into evidence? That is not proper law.
Regardless of that.
You do not read
Yes.
into evidence.
I recall portions of it being read to me. I don't know if the entirety was read to me.
And you're talking about right now in court.
That's correct.
Ever.
Did any of that occur during the course of, or before you testified today? Any reference to this report at any time, or Dr. Phil,
This
or
lawyer is
Detective
pissing me off.
Fillmore's attendance at the autopsy?
Not prior to my testimony. It's my first time seeing that document.
And the first time the findings I read to you were discussed?
I'm going to object as to the term findings, Your Honor.
Sustained.
First time the contents of Detective Fillmore's report, which I've gone through with you line by line. Your testimony today is the first time you become aware of that, correct?
Objection assumes facts not in evidence.
Sustained.
He's like,
Did anyone else
get this
discuss
man off of me.
Exhibit
Get me off of the
621 with
stand.
you?
Objection asked and answered.
It's overruled.
That's the document that is in your hands there. No, this is the first I've seen it.
Thank you for your patience, and I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Patience? You didn't have a
You
choice.
don't work for the LAPD, do you?
I do not.
The medical examiner's department is an independent department. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's correct, and that was part of the name change of our department to medical examiner to further assert that we have always been independent of law enforcement.
And if detectives choose to write notes, you have no knowledge what they put in their notes. Would that be fair to say?
Well, I'm going to object. That's called for speculation.
That's what she's saying. I will sustain it though.
other than defense counsel showing you some piece of paper that you've never seen before, you, as you've said, you have no idea what the contents of any of the reports are in this case.
I do not.
And when you said that it's possible there is a serrated edge on one or more murder weapon, just as it's possible that there was not a serrated edge on one or more of the sharp objects.
Madam,
That's because as
it's
we
inconclusive.
talked about on direct
The
exam,
one-sided way.
there are no pattern marks or tool marks.
That's correct. There are some rare circumstances where a serrated blade can leave a particular mark, but that is absent in this case. And there were no injuries that would retain features that will point to any specific weapon.
I don't think for that.
Good answer.
Thank you, doctor. You're excused.
He's like, hallelujah, I'm out here giving my dead people so I can, oh, give me
Being
more.
pizza night. I think we'll take our adjournment now until Monday at 9 a.m. The admission applies. Do not discuss this case among yourselves with anyone else or form or express any opinion of the cause is finally submitted to you. Enjoy the weekend.
He's like, get me away from this man. Wow. I got to tell you, out of all the days in court that we have had thus far, this had to be the most entertaining, lively day that we have had. We talked about how notes are transported from one inmate to another when an inmate does not want to be caught. We've talked about how they did shakedowns and, oh, let me get this off of here. We talked about the letter system and how it works, the camera systems, how they work. In the home, we had the daughter of Sementilli on the stand. We had jail employees on the stand. We learned about how seminal fluid is stored in a toothpaste tube to mail to another inmate in the hopes of getting them pregnant. I mean to tell you, we have heard it all, and I mean it all. So, y'all, it has been a day. What a day this has been. I keep singing that song because it's true. My day started out nice and slow, ended up dealing with a car wreck, not my own, for those who are just hopping on. It's just been a day. And I am hoping that at some point on Monday that the prosecution will rest, because right now we are in day 20 going into day 21. We're going into day 21 of this entire case. And we have not heard one thing from the defense's side. We don't even know if Monica Sementilli is going to even testify. Now, I seem to recall, and if anybody knows different, let me know. And I seem to remember it being said that we actually have a chance of the people that did the unaliving testifying. So they will probably have them testify at the end of the trial, because they are both in jail, or actually prison now. Both of the involved unalivers have pled out, and I think for sure one's pled, one maybe did a trial, I don't know. But it's my understanding that somebody was going to testify against her in that area. Oh, do I have kitty? Well, hello, kitty. Thank God she's not out there running the streets. Oh, y'all. It is 6:19 here in the evening. I know some of y'all, it is early morning. We appreciate you being here. See you, chat. Got a bail. Sticky widget. We are going to be live tomorrow going through all of the documents. I'm going to spend the afternoon or the day going through all of the documents that dropped in the Karen Read in sequential order. Hopefully, keep it straight. And that way, come next week, we are all caught up on what's happening. So, with that, everybody, thank you for sticking with me. Thank you, oh my gosh, all of you for the super chats and the memberships. We will draw tomorrow for the winner because I got to enter everybody's names. I got to do a lot. For those of you who visiting me for the very first time, thank you for being here. I'm Ada Kay. I'm your deaf courtroom commentator, and I appreciate your time. And I hope that y'all have a rockin' Friday, safe but enjoyable Friday night. See you tomorrow. Bye. Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. I hope you have an awesome day. Till next time, take care.